Welcome everyone to Pirke Abot, Chapter 5, Mishnah 13. Today's class is sponsored by Tali Shams in memory of her grandfather, Nisim Ben Meir Alav Shalom, and as well in honor of her granddaughter, Eva Farhi. Remind me your first name. Emily and Joe Kassan. Azaku Baruch. You should be Be'ezrat Hashem. You should see tremendous nahat from her for a very, very, very long time. I'm very used to Farhis that are girls. We have a fair few of those. Hashem should bless them with happy, healthy children, and Banim Zacharim, inshallah, should be zochet to raise a beautiful family. Okay, the Mishnah says, Arba midot benotene tzedakah. There are four measurements, four types of people who are counted amongst the people who are givers of charity. We're familiar already with the format of the Mishnah and how it plays out each of the different character types. The first one is someone who gives tzedakah velo yitnu acherim. He doesn't want anyone else to give. He wants to be the only person. Yeah, the one with all the praise, all the honor, etc., etc. His eye is stingy. He's begrudging of the others. Doesn't want them to have a part. He wants to offer himself. The second midah is yitenu aharim hu lo yiten. I don't want to give anything. Everybody else should give. I don't want to give. His eye is begrudging in himself. He doesn't want to give of his own money. He doesn't see the need or the responsibility dependent on him. Let someone else do it. Yiten v'yitenu ahirim. I'll give, and I also want other people to give. That's hasid. That's already someone who is pious. He's very high level. We mentioned already when we discussed the idea of hasid. What does hasid mean? Hasid means that a guy goes above the letter of the law. So he does more than he's supposed to. So a person who's yiten ahirim, he'll give, and the others should give as well. He's called hasid. And finally, lo yiten, that he should not give. I don't want to give. He doesn't want other people to give. He hates the idea of giving. Rasha, that's a rasha already. So there's a few obvious questions that we have to deal with. The first question is, you're telling me that there's four types of givers, and then you count as one of the types of givers a person who not only doesn't give himself, but also doesn't want other people to give. How is he one of the types of givers? He's a type of non-giver. In what way is he a type of giver? Is that a good question on the Mishnah? Good question. Second question. If you give and you want others to give, that's called a chassid? That's so special? I imagine you see a poor guy, you help him with $10. Imagine someone else walks by, they reach in their pocket, you're like, no. You tell the poor guy, listen dude, it's either him or me. Right? You're a chassid if you don't do that. That's piety. You're a normal, nice person that you want the person to get as much help as he can. Why are we calling this person hasid? So, with those questions as a backdrop, I want to do what we've done so far with all of these Mishnayot, is to try and lift like they say, up periscope. Right? Used to have the subway, the submarines, and they would take the periscope, up periscope, and they would raise it up, and it would come up above the water, and then actually they'd be able to see what's really going on. So we'd like to up periscope over here a little bit, right? What are we really talking about? We're not only talking about a person who's giving or not giving money from his pocket. We're talking really about a personality type within the giving spectrum. And if we could, for 1 second, maybe let's look a little bit at some of the possible alternate meanings of these words, and then I think what will be revealed is the nature, the style, the background of what it takes to be a giver, and number two as well, what that could look like if a person was to try to, in their own way, and for some people it's money, and for some people it's time, and for some people it's energy, whatever it might be that you're giving, it will motivate you, I think, to give in the best possible way. And when a person is giving the best possible way, then they become superpower. They become energized. They become excited by what they do and not exhausted by it. So let's take a look at the beginning. The first category is harotzeh sheyiten velo yitinu acherim. A guy sometimes wants to give and other people should not give. Now, you look at this guy, what do you think? Do you think this guy's a good guy or not a good guy? He wants a mitzvah for himself. That means that the guy appreciates tzedakah to such a level, he doesn't want to share the mitzvah. Now the pasuk, the Mishnah over here does not say this guy's a rasha, because end of the day, he's giving. And not only is he giving, right? Now he's giving, he wants to give all of it. So you're calling someone, could you imagine, let's just go 1 second, let's get in the eyes of the Mishnah. Imagine someone decides that they want to sponsor all the people in the hospital to eat kosher food. They go ask the Bikur Cholim, how much does that cost? Bikur Cholim says, costs us $5,000 a month. Guy says $5,000 a month, does a quick cheshbon, 60 grand a year. Okay. You know what? From now on, forever, I'm going to sponsor 60K a year. I'm going to give every poor person, I'm going to sponsor them. I'm going to pay for it. So, it's fine, we could raise the money. No, I want the mitzvah. What would you say about a guy like that? What a Sadiq. They would honor him at the dinner. Right? I bet you Elaine just said, is he single?
Exactly what
I know people. I have a good read on people. I didn't hear you, but I guessed. All right? Fantastic, right? Guy wants to give like that. The Mishnah's down on him. He's begrudging other people. Hazit, the guy's the nicest guy ever. People want to marry him, apparently. Right?
Maybe he wants to show off.
Maybe he wants to show off? Okay.
Maybe it's just really good.
I think there's other ways of showing off, by the way, also. Maybe he wants to show off how good he is. Who knows? Now, by the way, sorry, what's your name? Dorit. What Dorit is saying is maybe he's trying to show off. You know what the Mishnah should say? Guy who gives doesn't want anyone else to give. Ga'ava. That's what it should say then. It says over here, Eno ra'a b'shel achirim. He's begrudging other people. He's not begrudging other people. He's taking care of other people. So I want to share with you an unbelievable story. It's a true story. There was a rabbi whose name was Rabbi Yonatan Eibeshitz. Very powerful, very wise, very sharp. From the time he was a young boy, he was known as a genius. They used to come to him, all the people would ask him all different things, and he would show, even at the age of 5-6 years old, there are stories with him about how bright he was as a 5-year-old boy. Okay? Super smart. Very holy, great Torah scholar. Anyway, he had a study partner who was very hot-headed, also brilliant like him, and the two of them would study Torah day and night. One day, the church decided in their town that they're going to build a church. Where they're going to build it? Right opposite the shul. This was quite a common practice in medieval Christianity, that they felt a big part of the Christian doctrine was the suppression of everything besides for the church. And not just of other religions, but of any power. The church tried to step on kings. They would put their church opposite the palace, to illustrate that the church's power was stronger even than the power of the king. And in many places that actually came to fruition, where the church or the Monsignor or the head inquisitor had as much or more power than the king or the Caesar or the Sultan. Well, not Sultan, that was usually Muslim, but themselves. They put this church opposite. And then to add insult to injury, after they finally finish building the building and they make a whole big deal right opposite the shul, they go and they put up a giant cross with Yeshu on top of the building, overlooking the shul. This Chavruta, this study partner of Rabbi Yonatan, couldn't deal. He was a hot-headed guy. In the middle of the night, he climbed up the wall of the church, got some ropes, climbed up the wall of the church, and in the middle of the night, started pulling until finally he managed to yank down the statue of Yeshu and the cross off of the top of the church. Unfortunately, it made a little bit too much noise, and as he was trying to get away, what happened? The guards of the church, they found him, and they locked him up in the spire in the top of the church, way off of the ground. Nobody knew. He hadn't told anyone what he was planning on doing, so no one knew where he was. They didn't know that he was imprisoned, but they knew that he was missing. So the Jewish community mobilized to try and find, Amber Alert, Yani, the lost chavruta of Rabbi Yonatan. They searched everywhere. They couldn't find them. All the places he would normally go, nothing. One night, in the middle of the night, there's a knock at the door of Rabbi Yonatan. Opens the door. Who's standing there? One of the guards of the church. He says to him, listen, I know every day I see the two of you coming to shul together. I know that you're connected with this individual that you're all looking for. We have him. He's up in the top of our church. He climbed the church to try and smash the statue of Yeshu and the cross. They caught him before he escaped, and he's already been decreed that they're going to kill him, they're going to burn him at the stake for disrespecting the God of the Christians. Yonatan's shocked. He says, but listen, he says, if you want, I can get him out. But it's going to cost 3,000 gold coins, which was an abnormally large amount of money. They, as a whole, the Jewish community back in these times, in these places, much of the business world was forbidden for them to enter. They weren't allowed to own land, all the stuff that you read about, about the Jewish people being moneylenders in Shylock, in the Merchant of Venice. The reason why we became moneylenders is because you weren't allowed to own land in an agricultural society. They weren't allowed to study for professions. So what were they supposed to do? They did whatever they could to put food on the table for their children. In many cases, actually, the Christians were the ones that made the Jews moneylenders. Because the same way we don't lend money to other Jews with interest, ribit, Christians also don't lend money to other Christians with ribit, with interest. So how did the Christians borrow money? They appointed, like a Shabbat goy, they appointed a ribit Jew. So he would be the one that would lend with interest, and that's how they would raise money, raise capital to be able to do things. And then, of course, that became an anti-Semitic trope. But the interesting thing here is, so this guy comes to the rabbi and he says, listen, I can get him out, 3,000 gulden, you got it. If Yonasan Eibeshitz, where's he have the money from? He doesn't have the money. He goes and he tells the rabbi, this guy came to me, 3,000 gulden, he wants a fortune of money, gold coins. He says, but we have to get the guy out. Otherwise, in 2 days' time, they're going to kill him. Number one, pikuach nefesh. Number two, the redeeming of slaves, of captives. One of the biggest mitzvot of tzedakah. He goes to them. He says, how much money do we have in the community reserves? And they tell him, what reserves? We have nothing. Every Shabbat we have a few pennies. We give it out. We have nothing. We're going to go and we're going to try and raise the money. Rav Yonatan Eibeshitz says that, but it's only a couple of days. They said, look, what can we do? We'll do our best. Rav Yonatan, he goes into the back room of his little house and he pulls out a bag. And in his bag he has 3,000 gold coins. Where does he have the 3,000 gold coins? He was a newly married man. And one of the things they used to do was they would provide a dowry for someone. If your daughter married a big Torah scholar, they would provide a dowry that was meant to sustain the couple for decades. Marry off children, buy a house. So all the money he had in the world was in this dowry, was in this bag. He goes directly to the guard of the church. He gives him the money, and in the middle of the night, the guard helps this man escape. He leaves town, runs for the hills. He's safe. Yonatan is at home, he's waiting, he's in the synagogue, and he's kind of waiting for the other shoe to drop. Because he knows that the minute he gets home, and he tells his wife that he spent their life savings on this guy who got a little hot-headed and tried to yank down the cross from the top of the church, she's going to kill him. So he decides to do what any courageous, brave man would do. He decides he's going to run away from home for a few days. Let her find it, let her go crazy for a little bit. He'll come back, and when she calms down, he'll explain to her, literally, it was a matter of life or death, we'll figure something out. But he knew he wouldn't be able to talk to her when she was very upset with him. So he decides he's going to leave for a day or two, and then he'll come back home. Before he leaves the Beit Midrash, who walks into the synagogue before the rabbi could leave? The people who collected the money from tzedakah. They came to him and they said, Rabbi, we went around, we asked everybody, we're really sorry, we haven't managed to raise even near the full amount. But here we have a couple, 20, 30, 50, whatever, gold coins. A pittance, it wasn't even close. Yonatan says, listen, people, obviously it's hard for them to give, they don't have enough money for themselves. He says, give the money back, I managed to take care of it. They said, what do you mean you managed to take care of it? He says, it's taken care of. I figured out how to get the money, I got them the money, the guy left. The guy's safe. They tell him, Rabbi, if you gave your money away, here, at least take this money for you. Take it to pay back. Give everybody in the community. We also want a chance, a part of the mitzvah. Yonatan says, listen, I came to you thinking you might have all of it, but you didn't. I did what I did. I got the mitzvah. I'd rather not, let this mitzvah, you'll get the next one. Right? You'll pick up the next one. They say, please. The rabbi says, listen, this is the way it is. This is the way it's going to be. Don't waste your time. I made up my mind. They're upset. They walk out. Rav Yonatan puts his plan into action, and he leaves town for a couple of days. 2 days go by. He comes back home. As he's coming back towards it, he sees his wife running down the street towards him. Big smile on her face. And he's thinking, Uli, I guess she didn't find out yet. She hasn't found the bag, the empty bag in the back of the closet. He says, hey, how you doing? She says, hey, how are you? Good to see you. I didn't know where you'd been. A little worried. She says, you don't understand. The most amazing thing happened. What happened? She said, last night when you were away, in the middle of the night, there's a knock at the door. I go get the door. I thought it was you. Who's standing at the door? A man who tells me he's a guard from the church. I said, what do you have to do with me? What do you want? So he told me that they just caught him doing something that they're going to punish him for in the church, which she didn't know was the fact that he had helped this guy escape. And he said, and I'm not planning on waiting around to find out which type of death they want to give me. So he said, so I ran out of church. He says, I have this money. He gives her the 3,000 gulden. And he says, and I figured if I'm running for my life, I'll take some other things as well. And he managed to put away his life savings. He gave her as well. And he said, and some other jewelry and diamonds, whatever. He says, take all of this. He says, the only person that I think is honest enough to give it back to me if I come back is your husband, because of the interaction we just had last week. Again, she doesn't know what he's talking about. So he said, if anything should happen to me, then you keep it, it's yours. He says, okay. She says, and we just heard this morning that the church found this guy and they drowned him in the river. And look at the gift that Hashem gave us. All this money we'll never want for anything our whole lives. Look at how special it is. Look at how God. And Yonatan starts to cry and cry and cry. And his wife says, what's the matter? You okay? I don't think you understood the story. Let me start again. He says, no, I understand the story. Let me tell you what happened. He fills her in that he'd given her this money, he'd given this money to the guard. And she says, so what's the problem? Hashem rewarded you. He says, sweetheart, Hashem didn't reward me. He took my mitzvah and he threw it back in my face. He told me, I don't want your mitzvah. She said, why would God do that? He said, because when the people of the community came to ask for a piece of the mitzvah, I wouldn't share it with them. If I was stingy with my mitzvah, God didn't want it. Harotzeh sheyiten, someone who wants to give, v'lo yitenu acherim, and no one else should get a chance to give. Eno ra'ah b'shal acherim, his eye is begrudging of others. Let me tell you how I understood this in the context of this story with Rabbi Yonatan. Why does a person give charity? Why do we give charity? It's an obligation. One way of looking at the reason why we give charity is because we're commanded to do so. What else?
To help others.
Help others. You're describing two sides of one coin. Every mitzvah has within it two components. The first component is the human side. I look at you, you're suffering, you're hungry, you're cold. Let me help you. The second component is where God says you must help a person who's suffering, who's hungry, who's freezing. So God commands on one side, and on the other side is the human emotion. Is the human emotion in contradistinction to the command? So would you say that a person who gives tzedakah, not because he or she feels bad for the person, but only because they were commanded to by God, but really they could not give a darn about the poor person on the street. They're just a mitzvah box to tick. Is that a better Jew or a worse Jew? Worse Jew. So the two elements here, they operate in tandem. Effectively, what God commanded you to do when you do tzedakah is, God says, I'm commanding you to give. I'm commanding you to feel. Don't close your hand. Don't close your heart. Don't protect yourself. Don't look the other way. Don't cross the street. Engage in it. Feel the person suffering, and from that place, give the mitzvah of tzedakah. Be like Hashem, who cares about those people and therefore wants to help them. Are you seeing how those two things work together? Someone who gives but doesn't want other people to give, on one level is really missing the boat. Why? Because I see someone who has a physical need, and I come to them and I want to fulfill their physical need. I took care of them. I didn't begrudge the ani what he needed. I didn't hold back from the poor person what he needed. I cared about his needs. So I made sure that he had a sandwich, a coat, right? A pair of gloves. I made sure that he has what he needs. A Jew without tzedakah is not a Jew. A Jew without chesed is not a Jew. So much so, the Gemara says if you see someone who doesn't do chesed, who's akhzar, who's cruel, you should check into their lineage. They're probably not Jewish. That doesn't mean that someone who's not Jewish is cruel. But it does mean that it cannot be that you're a Jewish person. There has to be a problem. There's a problem here if you're not a Baal Chesed. It's part of our DNA. So the same way you care about the needs and the lack on a physical level in a person, here's a mitzvah that's come your way. Someone else wants a piece of it. Why would you deny them their spiritual needs any more than you're willing to deny the ani, the poor person, his physical needs? Eno ra'ah b'shel acherim. He's someone who has a begrudging eye to others. You're not a true giver yet because you want to give all by yourself. Honor, glory, all of that could be part of it, like Dorit said. But you're not motivated by the desire to help another. Because if you would be, then you'd want these people to also have a piece of this incredible mitzvah, of its zechut, of its reward. The Mishnah continues and says, if someone, yitenu acherim v'hu lo yiten, he wants others to give and not him. Eno ra'ah b'shelo. His eye is begrudging to himself. What kind of guy is this? Stingy. Can I ask you a question? What's the difference between Mr. Stingy over here and Mr. Rasha in the end? I don't want to give, I don't want others to give. Why is that more of a rasha? Isn't this the same guy? Like, does anyone here care if anyone else gives money? No, right? That's not something that people generally care about. You care about whether or not you have to give. Right? But do people actually care in general about whether or not someone else gives money? So Mr. Stingy is the guy who doesn't want to give and doesn't want others to give. But isn't that the same as the guy who doesn't want to give and he wants others to give? That we should say, Eno ra'a b'shelo. So I want to share with you something unbelievable. You have in this world today some incredible people. Bill Gates, amazing. Warren Buffett, amazing. These are people who've decided to sign something called the Giving Pledge. That when they die, their money should be distributed largely, the vast majority of their fortune should be given to charity. Wonderful, right? The Sefarim tell us, in the name of Atzei Hayar, the Sefarim write that this is what the Mishnah is talking about. Yitnu aherim v'hu lo yiten. Who's it referring to? Not other people. Not other money. His money. He wants others to give his money. Who's it talking about? A person who says, I'm going to keep all my money till the minute I die. I can't give anything. Let my kids give it. The Abarbanel writes on this pasuk, he quotes the pasuk, V'halach lefanecha tzidkecha, and your kindness will walk before you. There was once a beautiful mashal that was given to explain this. You had a bunch of different kids that were children to a very wealthy man. And the wealthy man told all of his children, he said, when I die, I want you to give out all of my vast fortunes to tzedakah. His kids were good kids, not so religious, but good kids, good people. Happy to do so. But there was one of his children that was a Talmid Chacham. He was a wise man. He was a Talmid, he'd studied Torah. And he says to his father, Dad, could you come over to my house? I want to show you something. He says, okay, sure. Comes to the house. He said, let's go into the basement. Lights a candle. And the man's son, starts walking down into the basement, holding the candle. Who's behind him? Walking down the stairs into the dark? His father. As he's walking down the stairs, he says, Dad, can you see? He says, not really. He says, you're blocking the candle. He says, would you like me to get you a candle? He says, yeah. That way, when you're holding the candle in front of you, you'll see in front of you. But if I'm holding the candle in front of me, I'll also see in front of me. I'm scared to walk down the stairs like this. The son turns around to his father. And now the candle's between them. And he said, Dad, that was the point I was trying to get across to you. You told us that you want us to give away your money after you die. That's like us walking with the candle and you walking behind. You're walking in the dark. V'halach lefanecha tzedkecha. Your tzedek, your tzedakah, your righteousness, your kindness will walk before you. Don't give it to us to give out. You give it out. When you get to Olam Haba and you left it to us to give out, you didn't give anything. In fact, on some level, you remained the same as any other stingy person who never gave a dime to tzedakah. It was too difficult for them to reach into their pocket and give. Is that who you are? Don't give it to us to give away. You give it away. So it's your zechut. The wisdom of that, Talmid Chacham, of that wise son, is something which I think is very important. You know, in this community, there's an interesting practice. And the practice is that you have businesses with, very busy businessmen, let's call it that. And they're doing great things, and they're very generous with their money, but they can't sit around all day and entertain people coming to ask them for tzedakah. So they started with a beautiful new minhag. What's the custom? They hire someone to come into the office, and this person looks after the tzedakah, and everyone who comes, they sit and talk to the gabbai, to this man, and the guy decides how much he should write them on each check. Okay? On the one hand, it's a beautiful mitzvah. On the other hand, it's the second line in the Mishnah. Yitenu aherim, v'hu lo yiten. You're giving your money to other people to give away. You're not feeling the pain of the ani. You're not feeling the compassion. Now, on the one hand, if this guy took more time off to give out more tzedakah himself, you know what would happen? He'd have less money. There will be less money to give to tzedakah. On the other hand, I'm not sure if anyone else is melting. Is anyone else melting in this room? Is it just me? It's very, very hot, huh?
I feel the air.
You feel the air? I'm schwitzing away. Okay. You sat.
Maybe because of the subject.
Maybe it's very, it's a fiery talk. Right? On the one, it's all right, I'll manage. I just wanted to make sure that not everyone else was feeling that way. On the other hand, the person might have less money to give to tzedakah, but he will have distributed tzedakah himself more. The Mishnah is teaching us here that it's not actually only about how much actual money got given. Yesterday when we did this event, right? And we had everyone come and pack the bags, everyone got involved, everyone walked on the streets, everyone handed it out. Beautiful mitzvah. Probably we could have done that more efficiently. Probably we could have gotten people's addresses from the city and just sent them by Amazon the package directly to their house. Probably instead of having all the different toiletries out there and having all the kids and all the people help stuff the bag, we probably could have ordered a toiletry kit that comes everything together. But then we'd be lacking the opportunity of Yitenu aherim v'hu lo yiten. The kindness that you do with your own hand, with your own eye, with your own heart, it's not the same as a check. How do you get involved? How do you get dirty? That's what the second part of the Mishnah is communicating. He's begrudging himself of the power of that mitzvah because he's not engaged. Or she's not engaged. You have a foundation. Then you have someone who's checking the foundation. You don't see when the money leaves. You're not involved at all. What a loss. And I think that we learn from here a tremendously universal lesson about the immediacy of the way we interact with mitzvot. How connected we have to be with the coalface of all of these mitzvot. And yes, you could buy online the mitzvah by swiping your card, or you could just go like this. You could just tap your card and completely be devoid of any, but you're missing the whole point. I must share with you one of the most unbelievable examples of this. Happened to me in my house when I was living in London. I was in the middle of giving a class on tzedakah. All of a sudden, someone's knocking at the door. I go quickly to answer the door. Open the who's standing at the door? A person who's collecting tzedakah. There's 50 people in the other room. I'm in the middle of this class. And the man says, listen, Rabbi, haven't been here since last year. Things are very tough. My family, my this, my that. And I'm trying to hurry the guy up. Yeah, sure, of course, here's some money. I'm giving him the money. And then midway of me trying to get rid of him from my door, it hits me. Here I am teaching them all about tzedakah, and I can't wait to get rid of the guy, so that I could go back to teaching about tzedakah. So I had a great idea. Didn't want to cut the guy off. On the other hand, right? Didn't want 50 guys to wait for me in the other room. I said, I have a great idea. You came to my house, you knocked at my door. Today's your be a lucky day. I brought him in, and I had the guy tell 50 people about what his problem was and what his issue was. And the guy walked around happy as Larry. And then when he left with 50 times the amount of money that he would have got if he knocked at my door and just spoke to me, I went back into the room and said, guys, I could hear the rumblings in the room when you just heard me at the door and you didn't, and I wasn't coming back so fast. And I wanted to send them away, but I thought to myself, Harotzeh sheyiten, am I the person who wants to give? V'lo yitnu acherim, and other people should not give? I had the guy come inside. On the flip side, am I also the other guy, the second person of yiten acherim u'lo yiten? Honey, can you get the door? I'm learning with the guys. Just give him something. How much should I give him? Doesn't matter, whatever. Just whatever it takes. Just get rid of him. Is that what we are? One of the challenges of living in Manhattan is in some ways we're removed from the coalface. At least in the Jewish community. In many ways, if a person has nothing at all, they're not living here. It's too expensive to live here. So where do they live? In a tiny place in the middle of nowhere, and then they hang out in Brooklyn. They hang out in Queens. They hang out. You don't get to see, other than collectors, you don't get to see it as much. It's a responsibility of every person, if they've moved away from tzedakah opportunities, to make an effort to find tzedakah opportunities. And it doesn't matter if you're cooking Shabbat meals with Remy and Sabrina, okay? If you're packing bags with our event and giving the gift of warmth, if you're looking out on Shabbat for someone that's left at the end of prayers. Myself and Rabbi Mizrahi, we host people every week. Lots of people. We can't have everybody every week. It's impossible. But somehow in the city, that's a mitzvah that kind of got swept under the rug. People don't host here so much. Maybe they host their friends. People don't host randomers. They don't have so much space. This was always our calling card. The very first Jew. So I was mentioning this to someone and they said to me that on the Upper West Side, there was someone that used to arrange with families a Toranut where every week somebody would have a couple of people. And you'd put your list forward and you'd tell people, how many people we have asking all the time to need a place for Shabbat. God bless. There's someone from this community, his name is Avram. He's a very big tzaddik. He's a tremendous heart. Every week he takes God knows how many people, invites them to come with him to Talia's. Why is he? Because there's where else they're going to go. Where else they're going to go? They go to Talia's. But again, pardon me, that's not Shabbat, what a Shabbat meal should be. It shouldn't be Friday night in a restaurant. It should be Friday night in a home. We need more homes. So, if you want to do that, Yiten, if you want to have guests, we have guests all the time. Robin can tell you exactly how many guests. V'yitenu acherim, and that other people should also have the opportunity to give. Sometimes the greatest giving you could do is not when you give. It's when you create a platform, or you build a system, or you create a phone list that allows people. Now, it's also people's problem too. You can't call Friday afternoon or show up in synagogue Friday night, someone take me home. It's not fair. People work hard to do this. I get it. But you know what? When the absence of a system, people don't know what's expected.
Excuse me?
Yeah.
It's the way to give also. Matan Baseter, it's better. It depends.
Matan Baseter is a very important concept.
Right.
That doesn't come at the expense of the ani.
Because he doesn't know.
Matan Baseter is the highest form of tzedakah that you could give. Wonderful. But what if the highest form, Matan Baseter means when you give and you don't know who the person is and the person doesn't know who you are. So neither one of you is embarrassed. Great level of tzedakah, I agree. What happens if the ani needs the money And he comes to you, he's like, I'm starving. And you're like, oh, I'm really sorry. You've seen me now. I can't give you. I only give privately. I only give matan baseter. Sorry. You could go die now in the corner. I'm going to go help someone else who doesn't know me. It's a greater mitzvah for you, granted. But this is the need that's right in front of you. Okay, lo tashiv dach nichlam, says the pasuk. You can't turn a person who's doesn't have needs. You can't turn him down. You can't be embarrassed. Again, it doesn't mean that the responsibility falls on any one or two people. It's impossible to live like that. Eventually it gets to a point where your own family can't handle, your wife can't handle. And then what happens? And then you stop hosting completely. We're not trying to exhaust anybody. We're not trying to overwhelm anybody. But people should take responsibility. You want to have guests once a month. And by the way, they don't need 9-course meal. Whatever you're having, it's fine. Yeah? People they're not coming for gourmet. They're coming to feel to someone's house. They're coming to feel at a Shabbat table. They're coming to feel welcomed, taken care of. So I'm just giving you an example of this concept where the Mishnah is going beyond the dollars and cents of did you give? Did you give to someone else to give? It's teaching you outlooks in tzedakah of the way that you give. Hasid. If he gives and he gets other people to give, that's Hasid. We said Hasid means when someone goes above and beyond. But Yiten v'yitenu sounds pretty regular. So why is he called a Hasid? Yes, Shelly.
I just wanted to know if a person was just starting off their life and they want to host, does that count as also maaser? If it's that mitzvah speaks to them more than like you said, giving out 10%, they calculated the 10% for extra food to have guests once a month or something like that. Does that count?
Excellent question. The answer is absolutely. Absolutely. Yes. You're allowed to give, you're helping someone that needs it. Now, does that mean you have all your friends over for lunch, right? That you could take that from Maaser? No. That's you having a lunch with friends, right? But when you're having people over who don't have a place to go, they don't have to be poor, right? Lots of people who are very wealthy who need a place. They need somewhere to be. Someone like that is also, you're doing it for the mitzvah. You're not doing it because you want to have your friends over, right? Then you're 100%, you're allowed to do it. Alexis, you had a question?
Okay, one time you said...
You're very religious, by the way. You even have a mechitza in a women's class.
No.
Go for it.
One time you said that it's I always get remorse when I don't help. If you need to have a family member, you need to help. So I'd rather help someone that's close to me, but then I feel remorse that I'm not helping other people, but I say I need to pick my battles. So is it okay or
The biggest mitzvah of tzedakah is in concentric circles. First you have to help your family. Then you have to help, your extended family. Then you have to help the people of your city. And you go further and further and further out. The one exception to this is the people of Yerushalayim, that whatever city you live in, the poor people of Jerusalem have a status of the poor of your city. Because Jerusalem is all of our city. Isn't that beautiful? So my first responsibility is to Manhattan and Jerusalem. Okay? My second responsibility might be a little bit outward. And what's the reason? My rabbi explained, who cares about your geographical proximity? Why is the mitzvah of aniyeh? Why are the mitzvah the poor people of your city? How come you have a more primary responsibility to them? Why? Sorry? אבל למה? Good mean. אבל למה?
because they're close to you.
So? Sorry?
You can see their pain.
Excellent. On the first level of tzedakah, on the side of the coin, that tzedakah is a mitzvah that God commanded. You have to give everyone equally. But the second side of tzedakah is, it's meant not only to what you give, but to what you become when you exercise compassion, when you exercise giving. If the guy's very far away, you don't see, number one, his pain, and you don't see the salvation that your help brings him. So we want you to be able to give to a person who's in that space. Okay? The last thing in the Mishnah is lo yiten velo yitnu acherim. So 1 second. So just to answer that, the first responsibility is to family, no question. But sometimes a family member is very needy, and they need everything. It's not your responsibility to feed a problem. You understand that? You have a person, let's say you give them, they're hazit, they don't have so much money. So let's say I'm very rich, this person's very poor. So I give this guy $100. Guy says he needs more. So I give him $1,000. He needs more. I give him $1 million. What does he say? He needs more. Can't afford the private jet. Okay? Do I have an obligation to give him that? No. The halakha is, interestingly enough, that a person is allowed to take tzedakah until they have amassed a fortune of 200 zuz. How much is 200 zuz? An amount of money that could take care of a person for a short amount of time. Okay? Once he has 200 zuz, he's not an ani anymore. You got that? So let's say a guy has 199 zuz, and he comes and knocks at my door. Am I allowed to give him tzedakah? Yes. How much? No. No. Any amount. Because the guy who turned up at my door was an ani. He was a person who needs. How about if the 199 guy comes to my door, I give him one. Then he goes across the street to the other guy and he says he needs money. Is he allowed to take? No. So when someone's beneath that amount, they're allowed to take tzedakah in any amount in that one gift. But at 200, they're no longer ani. The Maharal says, how do we see this? The word for charity is tzedakah. Tzadi is 90. Dalid, 4. Kuf, 100. Hey, 5. 94, 194, 199, tzedakah. More than 199, it's not tzedakah. You understand? So I saw beautiful from the Yalkut Gershoni. He says, Lo yiten velo yitenu acherim rasha. A person who doesn't give and he doesn't want other people to give, that's a rasha. We already asked earlier, why is he called one of the givers? He didn't give. He doesn't want other people to give. The guy's not one of the 4 types of givers. The answer, says the Maharal, is we're referring to a guy who did give. But what did he give? He gave a 199 guy 1. Why? Because he's rotzeh, he wants to not give. Velo yitenu acherim, and others also should not give. Understand?
Yes.
Someone comes along and the guy is coming for tzedakah and you say, you know what? I'm going to take this guy out. Here's $2. Now you can't take anything else. You understand? So there's many different elements and many different parts of the process of tzedakah. And much of the idea of tzedakah does not revolve around what you do, but rather the way you feel and interact with that mitzvah. So I want to leave you with one last piece of the puzzle. There's also another kind of chassid. Yiten v'yitenu aherim. He'll give and he'll cause others to give. That's chassid. We said, why is that chassid? It's a regular guy. You give, you want everyone else to give too. Hazit, the guy, look at him back, he's terrible. It's a terrible situation. Sometimes we know that other people are there and they're watching and they're learning from us. And as far as I'm concerned, like I'll give you an example. Let's say I already gave out all my maaser for this month. I don't have any more maaser. There's no more 10%. I fulfilled my obligation for tzedakah already. But I see that there's a bunch of people there and someone's trying to collect money. I walk up to the guy in a loud voice. I say, look, what you're doing is very important. Here's $100. I push myself. more than I can. Because I know that if other people see, what's going to happen? They'll give too. Hasid means not because you gave and you want other people to give. That's just a regular guy. Hasid is when you gave more than what you were supposed to give because you knew the impact. I don't have a lot of money. I'm a rabbi. Okay? You see this library? All the books? See? Yeah? You know how much this costs?
Hundreds of thousands.
Lots and lots of, I don't know, hundreds, tens and tens of thousands of dollars. You know who filled this shul with books? Me. How'd I do it? How?
You given it.
Simple. I went up to the Sefer Torah when the shelves were empty, and they said, Misha Berach, and I said, Shemit Nadev, who donates, and I said, Shemit Nadev, $101. I pointed around to the empty shelves for the library fund. The next guy went up to the Sefer Torah after me, 501 to the library fund, 1,000 to the library fund, 2,600 to the library fund. Do you know, before that morning, there wasn't the library fund. When Robin started getting checks for the library fund, she said, what's the library fund? I said, Robin, I just made it up. I do this all the time. I go up to the Sefer and I give 101 to the social media fund. What's the social media fund? What's that? Social media fund is we're trying to get money together to be able to bring the people on to help us put all the Torah, the classes on social media. Next guy goes up, 501. You don't even know what it is. Sometimes we could generate mitzvot that come after our responsibility. But we realize that we have to give a little bit extra because our deeds are going to be something that other people will learn from. I'm past the age of this kind of volunteering, but you know what? You know what? If they see me volunteering, then what are they going to say? With all their energy. You know, then they'll feel like they have to do it too. As I said, I'll end with this idea. Yiten v'yitenu aherim. The golden rule, the golden boy of this Mishnah is the person who gives and gets others to give. If this life is just about you, then all you have to worry about is whether or not you do mitzvot. You did it. Da-da-da-dan, da-dan. Heaven. But if this life is not just about you, it's about Kiddush Hashem. It's about playing your part in building a more beautiful, a more perfect world. If it's about teaching the world about the ways to live, then the worst thing in the world you could do is take a mitzvah for yourself. So many of you are doing a lot of mitzvot, and this Mishnah is challenging you. Elaine, you have a list of singles, 30 to 60 years old, trying to get them in, trying to do stuff with them, right? Yeah, she's doing it within one community, Hazaku Baruch.
Blessings among all of our friends, and everyone's welcome to join us.
Amen. But I want to just point out, you see, what she's doing is, some people, what do? They're looking for someone for themselves. But here's someone who's making a list so that everyone else will also find what they want. Special, right? Instead of doing a mitzvah yourself, think instead, not how can I do the mitzvah, how can we do the mitzvah? When the Jewish people accepted the Torah, you know what they said? They did not say, E'eseh ve'eshma, I will do and I will listen. What did they say? Na'aseh v'nishma. We will do and we will listen. Everyone at the foot of Mount Sinai said that I accept on myself responsibility to do the right thing, but also to promote to others that they should do the right thing. Because if it's not about you, it's about poor people getting what they need, then the more people that find out, the more money they'll get. If it's not about you, if it's about people meeting the right person, the more people find out, more people involved, the more people will find their nasib. This is the way a Jewish person is supposed to think. Yiten v'yitenu ahirim, that's Hasid. We should all be zocheh. I don't know if we want to be Hasidish, but we should all be zocheh to be Hasid in our life, in our interactions, and in our mitzvot. Baruch Adonai Le'olam. Amen ve'amen.